Are we rolling?
We are.
We're rolling?
We are rolling.
We're rolling right now.
Yes.
You're saying we're rolling right now.
Yes.
So what you know, Sweeto, is saying to me, Nathaniel Shoemaker, while we record Film Nerds Hour, is that we're rolling right now?
We are rolling right now, yes.
How would I know we're rolling? You never told me we're rolling.
Because I just told you we were rolling.
No, you never did. Hi.
Oh.
I was waiting for you to be like, wow, what a super great bit, Nate. Like, realize that I'm just messing with you the entire time.
I did.
Yeah. Yes, wait, wow. Whoa! You can see us. Yes, the camera does add 10 pounds. And virginity. Welcome to the first ever Film Nerds Hour.
And, with your host, Noah Sweeto, and the amazing
Nathaniel Shoemaker. I wouldn't say amazing. You are the amazing Noah Sweeto. I am the as white as you think he looks, Nathaniel Shoemaker.
I just think of myself as the fugly mugged black guy, but, you know.
Why you gotta diss yourself and give me compliments?
Because that's who I am.
No, you compliment. I in the insult.
Alright, fine. We'll work on that. As you can see also, guys, we got our lovely...
yeah, we got a background now.
Yeah,
and feel professional.
We got some more down in our space here, so we'll eventually show you guys that in like a video or something later.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want us to make that, let us know.
Yeah, it'll be very cool, and you can see some more posters. But today, as you can see, we got a special treat, which is the movie Misery.
Yes, Stephen King adaptation. We got
and a very good one at that.
We got the Blu-ray cover right here with Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes and James Caan as Paul Sheldon. We got a lobby card right here that came with my Blu-ray that I bought, and you're looking at an actual first edition that I bought at a bookstore for pretty cheap. And you scolded me because you don't have it.
No. I was Christine.
All right, well.
Which we all know the story behind that, but we don't need to get into that.
Right, even though you saying that is getting into it, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. Anyway! Which, speaking of which, I did find a first edition of Stephen King's It.
I have it already.
I know, I was thinking about getting it. I wasn't quite sure yet.
How much is it for?
I think it was $15.
That is a very good price for a first edition of that book. I would go for it. I got mine for $20. And they also didn't know what they had. So.
Yeah, that's usually how half-price books runs.
I mean, the bookstore. Just bleep out you saying that.
That's true.
Yeah, because we don't want to... We love that store so much, we don't want it to sound like we're insulting them. No. Or them get wise.
That is true. Holy shit.
Yeah, just, here, put this in. There.
It's always your solution.
Yeah, sheep sounds. It's perfect for bleeping out anything.
No, dolphins. SpongeBob.
I can't do a dolphin.
I can do a dolphin. The computer can do a dolphin.
Go. Do your dolphin right now. Oh, are we freezing up?
It's not freezing. It's on the spot. I should see this coming.
Yeah, really. It's me. We're talking.
You know what? My face is on video. That's why. Yeah. I don't want people to see the weird face I'm about to make.
Go.
No, I don't want.
They're not here to judge you.
You don't know that.
Are you just showing up to
judge? You know what? Half the people, no offense, half the people are probably like, he's black. He's not white.
He's black.
They probably didn't take care of it. Literally.
You're saying it like you're the first black person they've ever seen. And wow.
Well, because I know I said this on the other episode, is that most people that are white, no offense, they usually hear my voice and they're like, "Whoa, you're black?" when they see me, and I'm like,
that's not him being insulting or anything. That's just a reality of his life.
That is my reality. Most people are like, "You're black?" And they say it just like that. And I'm like,
with that much...
What does that even mean? Especially when they say, "You talk white." And I'm like, what does that even mean? What the hell?
I mean, you hear the name Noah.
Well, technically, just, I know it's religious, but we're just going to say one thing. Technically, Jesus would have been darker.
Yes.
Ergo, Noah would have been darker because look at where they were. They were in a desert. You're telling me that they were pitch white?
But Christianity was popularized by white people. Ergo, everyone in it has to be white so people can identify.
That's why they make interracial Bibles now. My Jesus is black.
Yeah.
I'm Black Jesus, by the way.
Yeah.
It's
He said it, not me. Smite him, not me.
It's a true fact. The good Lord will not smite me.
Lord.
He will not spite me. He loves me.
I feel like God is just he's just a casual dude. Like they say he's always like in robes. I imagine he's in a bathrobe. What's up? How's it going?
I have to say, while we're talking about movies, because this is how I always thought when people say God is a chill dude or Jesus, I always like to think about, and this is by no means blasphemy or anything, I'm not trying to do that, but I like to think of him, but I always, when people say so laid back, the first thing I think of is the dude.
Yeah.
From The Big Lebowski. Yeah. Somebody who's just, not even as an insulting way, just somebody who's really relaxed, doesn't want to fight, just is like, live your life, man, live your truth. My
dad is a pastor, for anyone who doesn't know. And I asked him about, everything that's supposed to happen, the end times, book of Revelations, And I was saying, like, what happens? And he goes, you'll come before God, and when you're judged, he will open the book of, I can't remember, and if your name appears, you are welcomed into the kingdom of heaven, and if it doesn't, he says, I never knew you, and you go to hell. And I'm like, is it like an act? Because you say judge. Is it a courtroom? And he goes, I think it's a line. And from that point on, the only way I can imagine God is as a woman from the DMV. Next! Next!
You're banned. You're banned.
Out,
you're banned.
Out,
oh, you're
out.
good.
Don't make me get over this counter.
Don't make me pull the trapdoor on you.
Exactly.
You're going a long way down.
All right. So, yes.
Misery.
What year did this come out?
The
film
1990.
Okay.
But, it definitely holds up. It really gave me The Shining vibes.
Yes.
Which I absolutely loved about it.
I've always said this. Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes. I would rather be trapped in a room with Freddy or Jason than her. Because...
Very
holy
bipolar.
Shit. Yeah.
Very bipolar.
Because that's the thing. I know Jason wants to kill me.
Yeah.
I never know what the frick she's gonna do.
There's times like where who's James Caan's character again?
James Caan, Paul Sheldon, the author.
Yes, Paul. There are times where he just says specific things, and even if he's getting a little snotty about it,
yeah,
the hint of sarcasm, and she's just fine. Other times she's like, "I'm gonna rip your goddamn head off."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You're just like. My God.
He says at one point, everyone swears, and she yells and spills soup. And then there's another part where he flips her off, and she's like, oh, you kidder. Like, you never know with Annie. But I will say, before we get into big spoilers, if you could look up where people can watch this. Because if you do want to watch this before because we're going to spoil the full movie, we want you guys to be able to do that. And then, you can see the movie and then come back, and it kind of is like a little conversation.
Well, none of them are free currently, but
okay.
It says under Amazon Prime. It's for $4.99, YouTube for $14.99, iTunes for $14.99, Google Play Movies and TV for $14.99, and Vudu for $14.99. So there's absolutely no...
I'm assuming the Prime is a rental for $4.99.
Probably. I can double check that too. But, it's worth it. Yeah. It's definitely worth it.
I would say so.
So never mind.
For sure. Just be prepared. Know you're going into a Stephen King adaptation. So know you're about to see some stuff.
But also know that it's actually one of the absolute better ones.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Kathy Bates actually won Best Actress at the Oscars for this role.
Yeah, which I could see it. And speaking to it, because I think these are two great movies to watch back to back. It's The Shining. Mm-hmm. Watch Misery first, and then watch The Shining.
Yeah.
Because then you can watch Doctor Sleep after. But it would be really cool to see if these were in a cinematic universe.
Yeah, it doesn't...
the same one?
To my knowledge, because I can't remember, it's been a while since I've read Misery, and I've read a lot more Stephen King since then. But to my knowledge, it doesn't have any mention of shines or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I know there is in, It and Dark Tower. And
which is what ties it. Because, for sure, Pennywise and Dark Tower and The Shining are all linked together because of that.
Stephen King loves his psychics. What can we say?
Well, that's what makes it really cool. That's why I kind of asked, because I was like, is Annie just one of those people who got taken over by The Shining?
Do you think technically, or thoroughly, even though it's never stated, but it maybe kind of is implicit, do you think Carrie was a Shiner?
Definitely.
She was his first book.
I think
so. She was the first Shiner, though.
She was like
full psychic.
And I think that she might have been one of those people who set up the chain for it.
Oh, she was like the...
Not necessarily like the
matriarch.
beginning of the timeline, but I think there is. Because you got to think about it, too, is when it comes to Pennywise.
Yeah.
There's got to be some of those, like, the Okinawas who had some sort of shine to them.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, we're getting into stuff. But, so, it starts off with Paul Sheldon. He's an author. And you kind of flash back to him in New York a little bit with his agent.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm gonna go to this place where there's a cabin, and this is where I finish writing my books. And you see him, he's finished writing it, and he's got what he usually has, which is a single match, a cigarette, and a bottle of Dom Perignon. I think that's how it is. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. And then he's driving in like a 67 Mustang, I think they said, on a snowy road, which we're from Minnesota. We know you.
It's not fun.
No. It's
Anybody...
It's not fun, and never be distracted. Ever.
Yeah, for those of you who do live here, you can also agree with that.
I've been in a car that's done a full circle and just kept going.
Yeah, it's not. It's terrible.
Pay attention to what you're doing, and if there is a blizzard,
slow.
Either slow or just stay home. Like, don't leave the cabin for a few more days. You're an author. I think you can afford it.
Definitely. And a very successful one from what we understand, too.
Yeah, so he wrote
books.
he wrote the Misery books. Misery's Child, I think, was the first one.
Yep.
And there's 9 total. Well, 8 have been released, and then the 9th one is about to come out.
Yep.
Is about to come out. But he gets in a pretty bad accident, which is definitely a thing where he would have died.
Yeah, he rolls his car off.
Yeah. Does a full flip.
Yeah, off a hill. So he ends up falling down to the mountain. His car gets completely crushed, and then we see a crowbar.
Yeah.
Because his car lands roof on top of its roof, so the door's pried open, and
you see someone dragging him out. Yeah, which
pick him up.
Yeah, and it will be said, you've never seen this one before?
No, it's been on my list. I kept getting it mixed up with Fargo.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because snowy premises.
Some similar settings, for sure. Small town snow. What did you think of it?
I loved it.
Yeah? Okay.
It definitely lived up to what I was thinking. The first time I was introduced to it was through Family Guy's Stephen King, where they kind of did those one-offs.
Yeah.
And, I was happy about it because it made me appreciate the movies that much more because, that was one thing that Family Guy was nice, and that's kind of what also made me want to invest some time into Stephen King, too. Because my dad had always made references about Shawshank and the Green Mile and stuff like that.
I love the Green Mile.
So, I've never seen those movies completely through. My dad has them, so I'll watch them.
I'm trying to find the different... I think it's called Different Seasons, which is a Stephen King book that's how Shawshank is in there.
Yeah, they were all short stories that were mixed together.
Yeah, well, Green Mile was a series of serial novels.
And was it?
Yeah, they got released month by month. I think each one was like 72 pages, something like that. But how he designed it was each one ends on a huge cliffhanger, which, to their credit, it does. And then you have to wait a month to get the next one. And that's how he designed it, is like you're thinking for a whole month. Kind of like a comic, yeah.
Yeah, a comic or a TV show, even.
Yeah. But then when he released the last one, he did the smart thing and released them all in one book as well.
Yeah, which, I don't like how everybody just doesn't release some of their stuff in one book. That's actually why I love, like, a lot of these scary stories, just kind of going off topic. Not being sponsored by anybody, but one of the things that I've also loved is Mr. Creepypasta, is that he took the time... Well, it's nice because he has those volumes on Amazon.
Yeah.
Of all these best creepypasta stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, too, is, like, at Half Price Books, they have those really, really cool short stories mixed with, like, the one I have a couple of them, and it's got, there's, like, ghost tales, supernatural tales, murder tales, and a lot of the cool things about those is that They contain stuff from H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, I love Lovecraft.
And Edgar Allan Poe, all those classic people, but they also have stories that were written and inspired by their work from modern day authors that aren't as well known.
Let me be clear. I loved Lovecraft's stories as an author. I was not a fan of him as a person.
H.P. Lovecraft was a little
racist, yeah.
And a little anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, his craft is still something good, and it was a different time, so who knows?
Yeah, it is hard to judge on that kind of stuff, because it is like a thing where it's very, even though it kind of seems silly, it's very possible he didn't know what he was doing or how he thought was bad. No. It's just kind of how everybody thought back then.
I think with a lot of these, and that's why I like time period movies, I think for a lot of the time, like, you know, you even see kind of Hollywood movies, like behind the scenes, they'd have interracial co-stars and they'd be like having to do all these terrible things.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, they'd be just the most sweetest people to their castmates, even if they were interracial or female.
Mm-hmm. It was about like the craft, you know?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, what it comes down to, is that there's people who knew that it was bad, and people who just wanted to spread that message, but gave it to the people who hadn't really met anybody like that yet.
There's a difference about, like, being, like, a certain way out of hatred and being a certain way out of just not knowing any better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah. So she pulls him out of the car. We find out that it's Annie, because he wakes up in a house and she's standing over him and she goes, "Oh, you're okay." And he can barely talk. I can't even understand what he's saying in that first beginning. But
and he's beaten up. You can tell that he got in a rough accident.
Once she explains, he like broke both of his legs.
One of them had compound fracture, I think she said too.
Both of them had compound fractures on his tibia, I think. And then he also had a dislocated shoulder, which she popped back in.
Which still wouldn't be fun.
No. And she's like, "You've been here for 2 days." And then she's like, "Here, take these. It's for the pain." It's like some pain pills. And she's like, "Oh, you're lucky I found you. You're a nurse. Found you. I followed you." And it's like, right then, I would have been like, "I'm sorry."
It's kind of already weird that she's kind of brought him in. And she's like, "I'm a nurse," is trying to cater him and knows all these things.
Well, and then she does explain like, "Oh, the roads are snowed in, so I can't take you to a hospital right now. But once it clears up, I'll call for one, and an ambulance will come."
And one of the things about that is that next shot you see out the window and it doesn't look that snowy at all.
No. Maybe we're biased to that because we're Minnesotans, but
and I mean, it wasn't snowing at all. But maybe that's either maybe that was intentional, maybe it was just a scene error. I think it was purposely intentional, though.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things that you had to be really observant of,
mm-hmm.
and you're just kind of like, "Oh wait, I noticed that." You know,
yeah,
kind of like if you look in like It 2017 version. That's one of the things I love about Stephen King movies, is even some of the older ones they add a lot of detail. It seems.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like that really foreshadow what's going to happen. And it's like in every Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, that's true. He's very good at that, at foreshadowing.
There is a lot in his novels, and I do like a lot how his movie adaptations reflect that as well. Mm-hmm. It's really neat. And also, just one more thing again to iterate, is that Annie carried him all the way back to her house. Well, I'm pretty sure she put him in the car.
Yeah,
but
still, that's a lot of
carrying
strength.
him up the hill into her car.
Full-grown man. Yeah,
and that's not to insult anybody based on gender, but that, like, just to pick a person up and bring them up a hill. I
wouldn't be able to do that. Are you kidding me? In snow? Hell no.
Yeah, that's...
And we had emphasis of that because the sheriff, he's walking in the snow and he falls waist deep.
Which, in all fairness, is after the blizzard, but still, you got to think all that wet snow would not be easy.
No.
I mean, we had a couple times when I was in football that we used to do drills and it starts snowing.
Yeah.
That was the worst part. It's like rain.
Mm-hmm.
It's
just like rain, but heavier.
It's like, it's like when you run up that hill, you're going back down. It's not fun. So seeing that was already kind of like a thing for me, was kind of like this is scary.
Yeah.
The fact that she's able to literally put him over her shoulders and just...
Yeah. So she starts taking care of him and tells him all that stuff. And then, is it then that we see that his agent is calling the sheriff? Yeah,
because he hasn't been back in 3 days. He was supposed to be back 3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he's already been at Annie's for 2.
Yeah, and she calls the sheriff guy, who it's a very like small community. So he explains, he's like, I'm the I'm the sheriff, I'm the games warden, I'm the da 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 da.
After
I'm pretty good at fishing
smartass.
game, yeah. And she's like, can you find him or whatever? And then his wife comes in, who is also the deputy,
which is absolutely hilarious. You can't get out of your marriage.
It really is. No, you have no time to yourself. And although I will say those two together, they're like the only thing that like the only happy parts of this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean the name is Misery.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like it's long stretches of the sad parts, and then those two, and I'm like, oh right, I'm back in. Okay.
Yeah.
So he goes to the lodge, right?
Yes.
Yeah, to see if he's still there, and the guy, he's like, did he show any behavior or anything like that? And he goes, no, when he's here, he never talks to anybody, never bothers anybody.
Does his work and leaves.
Does his work, asks for, and leaves after he's finished the book. And he's like, how do you know he finished the book? Because he asked for Dom Perignon. He asked for Dom Perignon and a cigarette. That's how you know he finished a book.
Yep, that's his signature.
Yep. So then they drive. Him and his wife are driving back, and I love the back and forth that they have just in this movie.
Yeah,
because it seems very real, you know.
Especially when she goes to put her hand on his leg.
She's driving, and she puts his hand on.
No,
she puts her hand on his thigh, yep. And he goes, "When we're in this car, you're not my wife, you're my deputy." And she goes, "Well, I'm a deputy who'd like to be under the covers with a sheriff." And he's like, "Stop it!"
Yeah, it's
really adorable. Like that's the elderly couple I want to be a part of when I'm that age, you know.
And the funniest part is the whole guy's just like, again with this.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you really funny. It's like, oh yeah, you're close at that age.
For a small town cop, he is actually pretty competent, all things considered.
Yeah, and very active.
Yeah, like he tells her to stop because he's like, there's a downed tree branch here, and she's like, anything could have done that, and she's like, yeah, anything could have, and he starts walking, and he's like an inch away from hitting where the car would be before he decides to turn around, but
which has now been covered by snow at this point.
Yeah, completely covered by snow. But then later on, like way later on, he's in a copter and they see it. They see the car like bent over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we get a shot that as he's crawling into the car, when he sinks into the snow, it shows us the angle from the car tire, and that's literally the only thing is one of the front tires.
Yeah.
That hasn't been covered by snow.
A lot of time passes in this movie.
Yeah, it's about like a year.
Yeah.
It's like a year and a half.
Because we get the scene where it's like raining out and there's no snow, and it's like, what?
Yeah, I think it was about like a year and a half, because they say he was gone for a pretty long time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's another thing where, like, because Paul Sheldon, he immediately knows that something's off about all of this. Because she's like, I would wait outside of that lodge sometimes and just think, oh, he's in there writing. And then I just so happen to be there when you're leaving, and I see you turn over, and it's like, she's like, you're brilliant, by the way. And he goes, oh, thank you. That's very nice. And then the second she leaves, he makes a face like, okay.
Crazy bitch.
Yeah, exactly. He says that at some point.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, which, yeah.
Another thing about Annie too is as
I love finding out so much about her as the movie goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the end though, it's kind of like John Goodman in Barton Fink, where he runs down that hallway. Because it's
show you
true.
The life of the mind.
Because it's just so freaky to me.
Yeah.
Because that was when John Goodman was a really big dude still too. Mm-hmm. But seeing the whole fire makes him look like he's running out of hell with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Just going, ah! I'll show you the life of the mind.
Yeah.
And you just see the dude just running away like, what the shit? He just shot somebody. Now he's running at me screaming, I'll show you the life of the mind.
I freaking love John Goodman.
Yeah, that and if you really want a good movie after you're done with Stephen King with Misery and The Shining, definitely watch 10 Cloverfield Lane. That will give you a serious performance by John Goodman that feels very identical to Kathy Bates playing Annie in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, very, very similar.
Yeah. So she, like, she's hanging out with him and stuff like that, and he lets her read like his new story that he wrote, which doesn't even have a title yet. Like, that's how new it is. And he's like, if you want to give me a title afterwards, and she's like, oh, I'm not worthy of doing something like that. And she reads his book, and she's like, I wanted to say something while she's feeding him. And he's like, what? And she's like, no, I can't have criticism. Imagine me criticizing someone like you. Like, you get the sense that she treats him like he's a god, which very unhealthy.
Because it's not, at this point, like, with what we've seen, it doesn't feel like it's just somebody being polite. It really feels like a stalker.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah. And he's like, oh, tell me. And she goes, the swearing. And he's like, well, it's a story about slum kids. I was a slum kid. And he goes, this is how people talk. And then we get her freaking out, and, like, the music is ramping up. And I don't think there's a moment in this movie where she's freaking out where I am not gripping the chair. Like, I think there's nail marks in your chair now.
Shit, man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Next time we watch it at my house. But you can mess up my chairs. But she just freaks out because she's like, people don't talk like that. It's blasphemy. And I'm like, okay.
And, yeah, she's like, do you think I just go down to the what was it?
The feed store and ask for some
damn seed?
Some F-word seeds and some cockamamie
bastard something.
Yeah.
She just goes off on this huge tangent.
And she's shaking and there's soup going everywhere. And she's like, look what you make me do. And it's like, And he never, like, means to antagonize her throughout this whole movie. And that's because he's really smart as a character. Paul Sheldon, he is very smart.
Which you'd hope as a writer he would be.
Yeah. Because he's like, oh, she could kill me at any moment, and there's nothing I could do. I can't even walk. Like,
and I got one arm.
Yeah.
So basically, you're just your head with a torso and an arm.
Exactly.
At this point.
So he's just like, all right, so I'll be here.
Yeah.
I'll just be nice to her and, like, say, like, oh, that's very kind. Thank you. Yeah. And, we get that little freak out, and then she's like, he meets her pig, all this other little stuff, and she buys his newest book, and each day she's like, I'm 40 pages in now, 70 pages in now, and she's like giving it so much praise. She's like, it's divine. And she's like, what's that painter who did a ceiling in a church? And he goes, Sistine Chapel? Yep, that and your book are the only two divine things in this whole world. And it's like,
she's just thinking about having a child, too.
Yeah, she really is. And she's like, it's art. It's so good. And then you get to the part about the fact that he killed the main character at the end of the book. And she storms
She comes in.
midnight.
She's fucking pissed.
Ho, ho, ho. And she's like, you killed my misery? As though he killed her child.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't kill her. She, and then I think he says something akin to like,
I wanted to move on to something more serious. I wanted to wrap her ending.
Yeah. Well, she's like, yeah, and I wanted to switch gears. And she's like, I don't care, you killed her. And he's like, no one killed her. And I think he says something akin to like, she's not real or something. And
yeah, he basically says that childbirth killed her.
Yeah.
It's a natural human
It was
element.
a natural thing in the 1800s. Like,
for women in the 1800s, yes.
Yeah. Which is true.
It is true.
Before modern medicine, you could die from
bleed out.
anything. Yeah.
Bleeding out, broken bones. Because, I mean, you are pushing a watermelon, so
Yeah.
big respect to mothers.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I have nothing but the uttermost respect for the female gender in general. Like, I am out of commission if my number 2 is too large, let alone that. So, full respect to you.
Don't imagine ever wanting to push
I've never
a
experienced...
watermelon out of my body.
No. I've never experienced anything like a period. I don't imagine I'd handle it well.
I have a high tolerance for pain.
I can't do the flu, okay? Like, seriously.
I have a high tolerance for pain, but mono's
hell
probably
no.
the worst that I got, and I don't want to do that for 9 months.
I never had
sick.
mono.
It sucks. Having mono is like having strep times 10.
The kissing disease. Who you French? I need to know now.
It's common from kissing.
Okay.
That was the funny part. because it can also be from like just natural bacteria, but
Okay.
worst 3 weeks of my life.
I hear you can't move at all. You're just
No.
like, oh.
It's worse than misery.
Jeez.
Comparing it to misery, I would have rather had broken legs.
Jeez.
Every time I would stand up, I'd fall over and nearly pass out.
I had that once. I had an ear infection, and I didn't know that I had an ear infection. It was just in one ear, but like, I was like, oh, I gotta go to work, and I stood up and face planted right on my floor in the front of my bedroom. And my dad heard me, and he opened the door. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm still face down, and he just hears me go, "I'm hurt."
That's awful.
Oh gosh, it was great though. It was so funny.
See, I did that multiple times, and the thing about mono is you can't eat food. What? Your throat is in so much pain. Like literally,
that's one bad friend. It got to
the point where swallowing saliva for me was like swallowing knives, and I would cry.
Oh my god!
I have a massive tolerance for pain. It's terrible. You could not walk because you get so dizzy. Your joints are so weak. You're literally like, it feels like you're dying.
So you just like stayed in the bathroom all the time?
I had to crawl when my dad had to go to work because he couldn't just take off 3 weeks of work.
Sure.
I ended up having to crawl myself to the bathroom each day.
At least in my house, there'd be like a spare wheelchair or something.
No, I had to literally crawl myself to the bathroom each day. Throwing up was so terrible. And that was like the worst pain I think I've ever felt in my life. Like, I actually had a mental breakdown because I could not eat anything, and I had eaten maybe like 3 things over the course of nearly a week and a half. And because it just hurt that much.
Make me really happy I've never been kissed.
I mean, it was bad. It was like, that was like my misery. So like, I can totally relate to Paul.
The one time I would be like, yeah, I'll take a catheter.
I will not.
Never? No, never?
It's still not. I mean, I will say this, not to gross out, but, you know, one of the worst things is...
Not to gross me out or the audience.
No, one of the worst things you have is going to the bathroom. Oh. At least Paul had a way to get there.
Yeah, he peed in a little thing.
He had a jug, and I'm sure she was able to wheel him to the bathroom. Oof, where's my phone? I'll have to turn that down.
Probably.
I'm sure that
she probably like lifted him up and put him on a toilet. Or if she was a nurse and you saw her closet in one scene with all the medical supplies, she probably had a bedpan or 2.
Yeah, for me, we didn't have that, so everything pretty much in your guts are liquefied, so, you know, usually you only can make it to one end.
Jeez.
So
misery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where were we even before we went off? Oh yeah, he killed the character in the book.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh yeah, she says like, is it this when she says like, I had a revelation? And it's like, she's like, in order for you to be pure, you have to get rid of something. And she wheels in a grill.
Oh yes, then
that is next, right?
Yeah, that is very triggering.
Oh my god, because she like lifts it up and his manuscript is there, and she starts covering it in gasoline and hands him the match, and she's like, you have to burn it. And he tries bluffing his way out of it, because he's like, my agent and a bunch of people have a copy. You know, me burning it isn't going to do anything. And she's like, no, they don't. I know you never make a copy. And he's like, well, I'll just never publish it. It's fine. And she's like, then why do you have an issue with burning it? And she's like, burn it. And he does, and you can see visibly how sad he is, and like how crushed he feels. Because he explains it in the beginning, like, he's like, I'm done writing these romance novels. I finally get to write something for me that I want to write. And she made him burn it. And as 2 creators, we would lose our minds.
Yeah, especially if I'm writing a script. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing worse when you think you have an idea, especially, and then somebody's like, but if you do this, because you feel like, oh, stupid, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, exactly.
But it'd be one thing if you finally got that perfect idea and people are like, all right, we could do this, and you have 1 copy, and then...
If it's on one computer, and then somebody throws it over an overpass.
I had one edit I was doing for a short, And long story short, the reason you won't see that edit ever is because the file got corrupted.
I had a hard drive that had like the first few chapters of a book I was doing, and that got lost. And I'm pretty sure somebody stole it. And it's a thing of like, yeah, I'm okay with that now because I'm ended up retooling it from being a book to a comic book series, so I'm fine with that. And now, but at the time I was like, I gotta start over? Like, no.
Because it's all your hard work, heart and soul, and, you know, even if it's not good and it's shit, it can be a first draft, but it's your pile of shit
well, I'm like, it's
you're forming into a masterpiece.
It's also a thing of, like, you can remember an entire, like, if you don't write your book, you can write it out in your head and remember all of it, but the second any of it hits a file, or the second...
You forget it.
Yeah.
You make room.
Because your brain realizes it doesn't need to commit memory to that anymore. So once it's gone, you're like, no, I forgot everything.
Exactly. Plus, it always makes room so you can bring new ideas, because you can't have a full 2-hour movie screenplay in your head, or a whole...
I'm pretty sure Quentin Tarantino doesn't remember all the stuff that happened in Django Unchained.
No.
I
don't think anybody does, but yeah, it was definitely, that was hard to watch for me, especially. It was just like watching it burn.
I think you audibly swore at the screen. You're like, F you!
So I was like, dude, you can't burn somebody's work. No. And to make someone do it, too.
Yeah, it would have been one thing if she burned it in front of him. The fact that she was like, you have to do it.
And it was multiple shots.
That's like if we said, like, if somebody put all the hard drive... somebody put all of the unpublished episodes of our show on a hard drive and was like, you have to hit it with a sledgehammer. Like, what? What kind of torture is this?
Oh, there's this good movie that just came out. I won't say what it is, where they face a similar dilemma.
Okay.
It is a summer blockbuster that just came out. It is in theaters. I won't say what until we do a review of it.
Alright, I know what you're talking about, but okay.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a lot of things in theaters right now. Like, it's not Mulan. It's not Black Panther. Or Black Widow, rather. Yeah.
Which, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Oh, yes, rest in peace. That might be old news for you guys whenever this comes up, but it's been a few days for us. Sucks. But so then, she burns it, and then we kind of jump back to the, they find the car, right?
They do. They are in the helicopter, and they finally find the car, and they know that he's around the area.
Yeah. And the reporters are like, he most likely got out of the car and crawled to safety, crawled out himself. We cannot find the body, but we will keep searching. And there's a bunch of news reporters, because, you know, he's a pretty well-known author.
I feel like if Stephen King went missing, people would be losing their shit.
I wouldn't say Stephen King, because as far as we know, Paul Sheldon's only written some 9 romance novels. So
early.
He has a very, early Stephen King. If, like,
people
him in the 70s,
like, What? He went missing?
It's still newsworthy, is what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
And the FBI's involved now, and da-da-da-da-da, and he's like... He sees the marks, and he's like... Somebody pulled him out. Like, that's a crowbar mark.
And that was the sheriff.
Yeah, the sheriff guy, who I love him. That's a crowbar mark. Somebody pulled him out. And she's like, you think he's alive? And he goes, maybe not, but he didn't die the way everyone thinks he would have. Like...
Yeah, and that's when he starts to get suspicious, and he actually starts to read the Misery books.
Well, that's a little bit later.
Oh, that's true.
But, because Annie's got this great idea where he's going to write a 10th book, and she's going to force him to write it.
In her image, though, is the catch.
Yeah. Well, not in her image. He's going to write the book she wants. And it's like... It's very like, you have to bring her back to life, or whatever, and then just write a whole new book, and it's very much a thing, because he doesn't protest much to it, because he's very... Is the battery dying?
I think it just died.
Are we not recording our faces anymore?
We may not be. Let's take a break real quick.
Hold on, right?
We're good.
Are we back?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Sorry about that, folks. That was a technical issue, and I got halfway through Dr. Sleep. So, where were we?
We were at the part where Annie has now started forcing.
She made him to. She's forcing him to. She's forcing him to write a new book, right?
Yes.
And she's like, I brought you everything. I brought you papers and the printer or the typewriter, and she was like, she's like, they discounted me on the typewriter because it's missing an N, which I told him is a letter in my favorite author's name, Paul Sheldon. And he goes, that's also a letter in my favorite person's. My favorite person also has that letter in their name 2 times, Annie. And she's like, oh, you. And it's very clearly a thing of like, please the psycho, so she won't kill me.
Exactly. Like a Norman Bates. He's getting that face again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And,
Let me check.
Yeah. Alright, we're back again. Are we?
We are.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Looks like we're just going to be audio for the rest of the thing here.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
hey, we're still figuring stuff out, you know.
Yes.
This is very much a work in progress.
It is, very much so.
I know I'm saying this at what, episode 13, 14?
You know what? Hey, this is the first time we're doing video, and that's alright.
Yeah. Happy September? October? November. I don't.
Who knows?
Alright. So, yeah, she's forcing him to write the book, and she's like, I bought this paper, it's the most expensive, and he's like, it'll still smudge, I need you to go back and get more paper. She's like, I don't believe that, it'll smudge, it's the most expensive. And, oh yeah, because we get the thing of, like, she asks him, did I do good? And he goes, yeah, you did great, except this paper. And you see, like, the smile slowly move from her face. And he's like, here, let me show you. And he, like, types on it and then starts rubbing it, and it smudges. Which is a thing that any ink will do, freshly put on any piece of paper, if you rub it hard enough. And she doesn't know. Capture magic twice, dude.
I don't know. Now, okay, so now we're officially back. This is like the 3rd time. We're having some major technical difficulties.
So he tells her that the paper she got is wrong. Sorry about the energy. Oh, why am I looking at the camera that's not on? I'm sorry. I know it sounds like I'm being a jerk, but
we've had a misery trying to make this episode work.
I've had. So this is my last episode of the show.
Oh, I meant this episode. Did I say episode or show?
No, you made a pun about the episode, and I'm saying I'm quitting the show because of how bad the pun was. That's the joke I'm making. So, anyways, she buys him a bunch of stuff, and she's like, "Did I do good?" Like a child wanting aspiration. And he's like, "Oh, you did great." But the paper, it's gonna smudge if I use that. And she's like, "It shouldn't. It's the most expensive kind." And he shows her by like typing a little thing on it and then smudging it, which fresh ink will do that to anything that it's recently written on if you rub hard enough. But she doesn't know that because she doesn't work with ink ever. So she's like, all right, I'll go get more pages. And she's like, but you know what? You could be more grateful. And she like takes the ream of paper and hits his legs with it.
Yeah, which is like, holy shit. Why
really messed up. That? Really messed up. And he has like dialogue with her where it's like he's complimenting her. And he does this throughout the movie, and it's very much a thing of like, oh, I better be nice.
Yeah, I don't want to be submissive, but I also don't want to have my legs broken again.
Exactly. So she leaves, but the reason he's like asking her to go and get new paper is because when she was throwing her tantrum, she dropped a bobby pin. A hairpin on the floor, and he like bends it, and he's starting to open the door with it, like pick the lock, because he got locked in his room, and he's picking the lock, and he like the door opens, and he has this funny dialogue, and he's like, "Come on, you can do this. You wrote about this, although that was fiction. Who knows if this crap actually worked?" And then you hear it unlock, and he opens it, and he's like, "Huh."
Which is a great...
It's really great dialogue. But then there's like so much tension of he's going around the house with the wheelchair, and he knocks over like a little ceramic penguin thing and catches it, and it's like, for a second you think, why is it tense that a penguin fell and he's catching it? And it's like, oh right, because he's not supposed to be out of the room, and if she finds out he left the room,
yeah, it becomes very bad.
Mm-hmm. And he wheels himself over to a phone and starts trying to use it, and then he looks under it and there's no phone. Like, it just looks like a phone. Like, there's no actual parts for a phone. And he says to himself, crazy bitch. Which is what we're all thinking.
Yeah, which definitely should scream that cabin in the middle of a snowy woods.
Mm-hmm.
Or just on a mountain alone. It's so isolated.
I imagine from now on when he does that, he probably A, won't be going to that same cabin, and B, if he does, he's bringing a weapon.
Yeah, or somebody.
Yeah, or taking his daughter with him.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the reasons we feel for him. And that's, like, I feel like why he keeps fighting throughout this whole movie. He wants to see his kid again.
Yeah, he owes it to her being busy all the time and whatnot.
Well, no, it's just, it's a parenting thing.
Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah. Well, like, they say it a lot, like, oh, these books, they paid for your daughter's braces, they're now paying for her college. So you get the sense that she's an adult. And, like, she doesn't necessarily need him, but it's not, like, about that. It's about, you want to see the people you love again. So...
Which we never see his daughter on screen.
Well, yeah, because we get a thing earlier where Annie says she's like, I called your agent, and,
Your daughter.
Well, she says she called his agent. Well, she's like, I called the hospital, they gave me more instruction, and I'm supposed to bring you there. They'll send an ambulance to come get you after the snow melts. And then I called your agent, and they thanked me, and they said they'll tell your daughter. And he's like, oh. And then he goes, I think he says, like, oh, he'll tell her. And he goes, yeah, he said he would, so don't worry. And his agent's a woman. So he already knows, oh, she didn't call her. Like,
yeah.
And like, now he knows that because the phone isn't there.
Yeah.
And I think she said before, like, oh, I never called anybody. Like, or she says later on, rather.
Later on, she did.
Yeah. Which we kind of already guessed that.
Yeah, basing it off the phone's entrails and...
Yeah. But then he wheels himself over to the kitchen.
Yeah, and then to the living room.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, he goes to the medicine cabinet where she keeps all the stuff, and he takes like a big vial of a big package of those pills she's been giving him.
Yeah, these bright red pills.
Which are supposed to be for his pain, but he hasn't been taking them as of late because he wants to have like a clear head.
Yeah, he wants to know what's going on. So his method for that is to stick him under the mattress.
Yeah, at first he sticks him under the mattress, then he cuts a hole in the mattress and sticks him in the mattress, and it's like, he's very smart. He's a very smart guy. I can't say it enough. But, so, go ahead.
I was going to say, luckily Paul isn't a horror writer.
Yeah, no.
Otherwise, they definitely would have been a whole different story.
Oh, yeah. Well, Stephen King kind of said he based the concept off of himself of like, what if I got kidnapped by a fan?
I just feel like with Stephen King, it'd be way different though if somebody if he would have made Paul be a horror writer.
Yeah,
I feel like a detective, because then Annie probably would have been one of those people who's like, oh, so you're gonna try this, so why don't I double check this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he does have an advantage of just being a romance writer, and nothing against romance writers. It's just they don't really they never have the thought of how would I escape a house of a kidnapper. At least not to my knowledge. And
judging by how one of the things about how technical Paul is when he's trying to survive these situations and maneuvering and stuff like that is just notably that he must be working on some kind of action or
he's got a plan
for himself,
or he's making up a plan
for another book. I have to think too, because.
Maybe.
I like to think of it that way. I'm like, if you have a creative mind and you're put in a situation like that, and you're able to have a clear enough head to think, part of it's survival. The other part is if you're an author or director or something, you've got to have that creative mind. So you might be thinking of all sorts of ways.
Sure.
Plus, just judging by when he wrote it in his books, the whole lock-picking thing.
Yeah.
What would you find in a lock-picking romance novel?
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of reasons you could.
Mm-hmm.
discover someone's cheating or not. But you kind of have to have the idea in the back of your head that he's probably written some stuff even in those romance novels. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
But there's like a very intense thing of like, he's like out of the wheelchair. And because he's like, what was he doing out of the wheelchair?
I think he was trying to get to those meds because his chair could not fit through the door.
That's right, yeah. So he crawled or something. But then he hears her coming back, like, on the road, thanks to the snow. And it's very much a thing of he's got to, like, crawl. And he's got to move and get back. He's got to get from the kitchen back into his room and relock the door and hide everything he's done and make sure she never knows he was out. And it's very intense.
Yeah, it's that rush of, holy shit, she's like at the door.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even that she drops paper or anything.
Yeah.
And the scariest part is if she really wants to, she could have looked in the window and saw that he wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
That he was moving around.
Yeah, it's that uncertainty of like, does she know and she's just messing with him? Like, because she gets back and she's like, I was thinking while I was driving and I wouldn't want myself to hit someone. Can you ever forgive me? And he's like, he's like, yeah, I can. And she's like, oh, you're sweating like crazy. Let me get you in the bed. And he's freaking out because he still has, like, in his pants are the pills.
But they're right above his waist.
Yeah, so you could still see him. So he's like, give me some pills for the pain. And she's like, well, let me get you in the bed first. And he's like, for God's sakes, give me the pills first. And she's like, oh, you poor thing. Okay. And then he, like, gets himself situated and she gets him in the bed. And he puts the pills at the back of his mouth. And then she leaves and he takes them out and shoves them in the mattress. And then he starts breaking up the pills, right?
Yeah. We see that Annie's watching TV later that night and in her room. And then he ends up starting to take those pills and open them and pour them into a little paper-made bag.
Yeah.
And then swallowing the tablets after he tries to figure out, like, what they are.
Exactly. So then, like, that stuff happens. He writes the first draft of it, and she does not like it.
No, she's, she comes in and does basically the same thing, just
of yelling, yeah.
A little less aggressive.
She doesn't hit
the
him, I don't think. But
yeah, no, she just kind of freaks the fuck out at this part.
Yeah.
But...
She yells a lot, but it all seems genuine. It never seems, like, over-exaggerated.
No, it's not like a Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like some of those classic Nicolas Cage ones.
It seems over-exaggerated in the context of a human being, but it doesn't seem over-exaggerated in the context of her character. Someone who's clearly not all there.
Well, I unfortunately have had the experience of somebody who's yelled exactly like that. Mm-hmm. So, for me, it was definitely like, yeah, I could see a real human doing this.
Yep. So she has him rewrite it, and then he, like, finishes writing it. And he's like, why don't we have a celebration dinner? Because he, like, lets her read each chapter he's writing. And she's like, oh, it's even better than some of your work before. And he's like, why don't we have a dinner to celebrate? And she, like, makes him meatloaf. He compliments it, whatever. And she gets wine, and he's like... She's about to pour the wine. He's like, why don't we toast to misery and her being back? And he's like... Wait, we have to do this right. Do you have any candles? And when she leaves to go get a candle to light, he pours the meds in the wine glass.
Yep.
Which, it's a thing of, like, was he trying to knock her out or was he trying to kill her? Because she says early on, if I die, you die. Because no one knows you're here. And you can't walk.
I mean... I think he got to a point where it's like she's more of a threat, so it'd be better to die while trying to flag somebody down or figuring out how to put his foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah.
And drive, because there's multiple ways that you could drive.
I can figure that out later. First, I gotta get rid of her.
Because there's definitely no way that he's going anywhere.
No.
With her around. So, I mean, even if it was just to make her pass out and see if she had any keys or anything. Because, you know, at this point with Annie, it's just like, you can't trust if she's actually telling the truth.
Exactly.
He's seen that, you know, yes, there's a phone that's not working, but how much you want to bet that she had the idea that if he were to escape, maybe I'll just pull out all the pieces just in case.
Exactly. Well, and they, like... It sucks. I get so mad at the scene because he pours it on there and then she, like, spills it all. And it's very much a thing of, like, you wonder.
If she did it on purpose.
If she knew... and she's playing him.
It seemed a little too, for me when I first saw the scene, I'm like, it seems a little too purposeful.
Yeah, because she was like, "Oh, my arm got too close to the candle," and he looks so bummed out. Like he's like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
I'm starting back from square one.
Which, is a lot of the thing too, because he's had a change of heart.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously is already probably suspicious in her mind anyway.
Yeah.
But then also the fact that he looks so bummed out when she spills the wine.
Yeah.
But the question too is what made that scene so powerful is because does she notice that he's bummed out and thinks that there was already something in there? Exactly. Or is it bummed out because she thinks that she just spoiled his perfect dinner? Because one thing about Annie that I really liked and the way that Kathy Bates portrayed her was the fact that if you've seen, like, for Split, for instance, mm-hmm. Kevin, or, not Kevin, James McAvoy.
He plays a character named Kevin.
Yes.
James McAvoy, yeah.
And he has 24 different personalities in the movie Split. One of those personalities being a 7 or 9-year-old child named, mm-hmm. I can't remember the name of him.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, but it's, this kid that he plays, he talks in a little kid voice. And he acts like him, too. And
I just had a hot dog, yeah.
Yeah, and that is something that I love. Like, Kathy Bates, she looks physically older. You can see that she has some gray hair and everything, which makes Annie look older.
Yeah.
But her voice is such that of a child when she's not yelling. It's very sweet, very innocent. Did I do
good? Yeah. Are you okay, Paul?
As if she's just a little child trying to find her way.
She wears a cross around her neck. She's got a pet pig. Like, it's very much
named Misery.
Yeah, named Misery, and it's like, mm-hmm. And he makes a face when he meets the pig, because it's like...
You named it Misery.
Well, no, it's not even that. He's from New York. He's not accustomed to a pig being that close to him. He probably...
Let alone seeing as a pet.
He probably eats bacon, like, with every breakfast. So the fact that one's right there and it's just, like, on his bed, like, and it's just like...
Hi!
And it might smell bad even. He's just like... Ugh. Like, he'd be okay if it was like a dog.
White burst! Get it off!
Exactly. So then, like, we get the sheriff, and he starts reading his books, yeah?
He starts to read these Misery novels, which I kind of called What Would Happen Later.
You did.
Which I had the idea because my thing is, like, I felt like he was reading it to search for specific keywords and sentences,
mm-hmm.
which does play a very large role later.
Yeah, when Paul has his second breakout.
Yeah,
because for a big chunk here, not a big chunk, but a chunk of like real time lapse, he's reading the books, and it's intercut between him reading the books and Paul writing the new book, and then you just see kind of like time is changing outside the window.
Yeah, from dark to night and for seasons and everything.
Yeah.
And then it looks like what a years passed, really, with the transitions if you put them together.
Well, because, like, you get to a point where it starts raining, and it's just rain, but not snow.
And it's not snowing outside. You see, like, it's fresh on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the grass and everything. So
yeah.
It kind of makes you think that, a lot of, like, a year has passed by then.
Or pretty close.
Yeah, or pretty close, because, and that's when we kind of see it's snowing again. It's back into its snowy setting.
We have that scene during the rain, though, that I feel like has
yes.
a point, yeah. Because she's seeing the rain, and he, like, brings her food, and he can tell something's visibly wrong. And he, of course, wants to know if there's something wrong with her, because if there is, he might die. And he's like, is everything okay? And she's like, the rain gives me the blues. And she has this beautiful monologue just about, like, I think it's something like, you will never know what it's like to love someone like you when you're someone like me. And it's very much a contrast between, like, the everyday people and, like, people of, fame and accolade and stuff like that. And she's like, I love you, and I know you'll never love me. Don't even say it. And she's like, and you'll be leaving soon, because the book will be finished, and what'll I do then? He goes, why would I leave? I like it here. And she's like, that's nice for you to say. And then she pulls out a gun.
Well, she says, but we both know that's not true.
Yeah, exactly.
She pulls out that gun.
We don't know that's completely true. And she pulls out a gun, and he remains remarkably calm. when she pulls that gun out.
And she says the most fucked up line.
Yeah, I
Goes,
got this gun. I put bullets in it sometimes. I might use it later. Do you need anything? And then she leaves, and it's like...
Did she say, do you need anything? I thought she just said, I might use it later, and then walked out.
Yeah, I think she asked, does he need anything? Like, very casually. He's like, no. And then she left, and it's very much a thing of, like, he's definitely going to bed that night wondering, like, is she gonna shoot herself?
Or him.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, like, the guy, he writes down a quote, right?
Yep, the sheriff writes down one of the quotes from his book. A couple of them.
Yeah, a couple of his book where Misery, the character, is on trial or something.
Yeah, and then he does some researching because he sees Annie the next day coming into town to grab supplies.
Well, while she's in town, Paul breaks out of his room again. Right, doesn't he? Because that's how he finds the scrapbook.
Yeah, well, yeah, we find the scrapbook, but that's not what the sheriff sees first, though. I mean, we have the sheriff going into the store first.
Oh, yeah, he goes in there and asks about, like, what she's bought.
After Annie left, because she screams at the one dude, even though he was following the traffic regulations. Yeah. So he goes over and asks if she's bought anything suspicious. The cashier's like, no, not really.
Names of paper
And he goes, what kind of paper? And he's like, well, a lot of writing paper.
Yeah. And he's like typing kind. Oh, and he's like, does she... Oh, yeah, he says, like, every time that Sheldon comes out with a new Misery book, she has me set a copy aside for her and all this stuff.
Yeah, so automatically right away he finally figures out that, oh, she's a fanatic, which obviously points to her being the suspect, so...
Well, and it's also a thing of he's like, does she buy anything unusual? And he goes, not really, and he lists off the stuff, which does give us a clue about time passing. That it's not unusual at this point for her to be purchasing paper and ink for a printer. For a typewriter, I mean.
Yeah. But that's still suspicious to the outside with an author being missing in the area.
Exactly. Well, and we see the scrapbook first before he goes to the library.
We see the cut of Paul rolling around, getting out of his room again, and finds a file in the living room. That's when he finds it in the living room.
It's a scrapbook. She made a scrapbook.
Yeah, of her history.
Yeah, and it's like... It's a news article about her husband dying, and then it's an article about, like, all these med school students, and then it's intercut with her, like, getting top of her class, becoming head of intensive care, another guy mysteriously dying, then a bunch of babies die?
Yes. Right? A bunch of babies that kept... newborn babies that kept dying. And then in the nursery, some of the toddlers and other babies that kept dying as well.
And then her on trial, and it shows her getting arrested, too.
Which I think the sheriff also sees, if I remember right. He finds an article.
He sees her face, and then goes to the library and finds the article, and it has a quote that he wrote down from the book.
Yeah, which I can look up here, because I'm trying to remember, but I want to do it word for word. But it was a very good quote, too. It's like... which I believe is...
It's like, I am a woman, but only let man judge me in a court of man, or something like that.
Yeah, and he will judge me in the end.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, just Google Misery quote, and you'll find it. Sorry, guys, I'm very tired. It's been a week.
Yeah, and... I mean, and that was kind of cool thing is, like, you see how much, though, when the sheriff pulls it out, how many he's
got a lot of notes.
Notes that he's taken on all these different quotes.
Yeah. And it's a small town. Like, this is the only thing he has to do right now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other cool thing, too, that really emphasizes that, is that he's just this small-town cop who's now gotten something really big on his hands.
Yeah, and he's putting a lot of time in it, because there's nothing else going on. Like, we get a line in the beginning where he's on the phone, and when he hangs up, his wife, the deputy, comes in and goes, "The phone rang. Busy day, huh?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'm not having luck finding the quote anyway, but...
But, yeah. It's a good quote, but she says the exact thing.
On her testimony during her trial.
Yeah. So then, Paul, he when he breaks out to the room, he grabs a kitchen knife as well, because he's prepared to kill her, because he knows that she's so erratic and she's got a gun. Like, she might just kill him before it's all over anyway, before he finishes the book. So he hides it in his sling. And then when she comes back in the house, she doesn't go back in his room, so he hides it under his bed. And then later on, she gets him with a needle or something.
She walks right in, but that's no, she walks in first. Mm-hmm. Puts the needle and puts him to sleep.
Yep.
And then he wakes up.
He's very drugged up. He's like, Annie, what's going on? Like, he's smiling.
And that's when we see the sheriff coming up to her door, coming down.
No, not yet. Because we get the scene that both you and I cringed at.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So she's like, he reaches under for the knife, and she's like, are you looking for this? I know you've been out. And she picks up the hairpin. This is how you've been out. You've been out twice. My penguin always faces north, not south. And it's like, oh, she's known from the beginning. She didn't say anything.
Which makes you think that the dinner, that's why she knocked it over.
Yeah, it's even scarier. Like, she definitely probably knew that some pills were missing, because she probably counts them every day. Like...
Yeah.
So then she, talks about, diamond miners.
Yep. And I think how they used to hold the slaves to make sure they didn't run.
So they made sure that they... Yeah. So when they would catch kids who would steal the diamonds... They wouldn't kill them, because that's how you lose a worker. They would make sure that they could still work, but they never could run away again. And she's like, do you know what it's called? The practice was called hobbling. And she ties him down, puts a piece of wood in between his ankles, and picks up a sledgehammer. And both you and me were like, God no. And
I got a strong stomach, but that was just a little too realistic.
Hell no. It's the sound. It's him screaming. It's the very shot of the ankle bending. Because he's like, please no. Annie, for God's sakes, please. And she's like, don't worry. It's for the best. And just wham. And his ankle, just straight bends around the 2x4.
Yep.
And then she's like, don't worry. We're halfway done. And she does it to the other foot, too. And he's just screaming like crazy.
And then goes into shock.
Yeah. And she says... God, I love you. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
he's gonna die. You're done.
You love him so much that you just decide to break his ankles.
Hobble him, yeah. And it's like, oh, you're never... I had that moment the first time I watched it. I'm like, oh, he's not getting out. This is his life now. She's gonna make him write things forever. And
yeah, it's
really
nightmare fuel.
Really messed up. And, she's feeding the pigs, and she comes back afterwards, and he's, sitting at the chair writing, and she looks at him, and she waves, and he just flips her off. He doesn't care anymore. And she's like, oh, you joker, you. And it's like... so...
She's just so mentally unhinged.
It's so good. Because he was like, I'm gonna make her happy and say all this stuff, and he's just like... Fuck you.
Well, at that point, I would be too. It's like, why am I even going to play to this bitch?
Same. She made me never able to walk right again. Why would I? So then, we see the cop come up to the house.
Yes.
And she drugs him real fast. And he tries resisting her, to his credit, because he's been we see he's been bench pressing and making his arm stronger by lifting the typewriter.
Which, is realistic, because those things are heavy as shit.
Oh, yeah. You ever been in a thrift store and seen one and been like, oh, cool, oh my God.
They're solid metal. You can tell that they're definitely solid meant to last.
Yeah. So then, she throws him down the basement, which is a weird hidden basement.
She picks him up.
Yeah.
She didn't even throw him. She picks him up off the wheelchair, puts him over her shoulders, walks down, sets him down there.
Yep.
After she drugged him, of course, when the sheriff comes in.
But it looks like a basement I'd have in my dream house. And that's not a creepy thing. I want a house that has a bunch of secret passageways and stuff like that. And door of the basement looks like the side of a wall. And then you push it in and the thing pops out.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a nice effect. And a person like this would have one of those.
Oh, yeah, you definitely expect it.
So, yeah, the sheriff guy comes in. She starts showing him around. She's like, would you like a tour? And he goes, yeah, of course. And they asking questions and stuff. And he's like, did you hear about Paul Sheldon? She's like, oh, yeah, I heard. It's so sad. And then she comes up with a great story. She is a really good liar.
Yeah.
Because she's like, when I heard about it happening, God told me I gotta finish his work and pick it up. So I started writing and stuff. I tried to write like him. Would you like to see where I write? And he's like, sure. And she's like, I made the guest room into a workroom and all this stuff. And meanwhile, it keeps cutting back to Paul, like, on the ground in this dirt floor basement. Slowly waking up and moving. And she's like, you can read a couple 100 pages if you'd like. And he's like, oh, no, that's okay. And he's like, do you have anything to drink? She goes, yeah, I'll get you some cocoa. I'll be right back. And it's an interesting thing humor-wise as well, because she goes in the kitchen and she keeps, like, looking at him through the door. Like, you remember? She keeps, like, putting her head out and making sure he's staying there.
Which really reminded me of Pennywise when she plays Mrs. Kirsch in It Chapter 2. Like, every time...
No one ever really dies.
Yeah, which every time that Beverly looks at the photos, you see Pennywise, like, scurry naked through the hallways just looking at her going, like...
So weird.
Or, like, the worst part, like, it gave me those vibes. Like, the other part is Miss Kirsch slowly puts her fingers on the door frame and then slowly peeks her head out and starts smiling.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this reminded me of, and I was like...
Yeah, but
that's
after she stops watching, he goes up the stairs and, like, starts looking upstairs, and she's like, I got your cocoa. Like, she follows him upstairs. And...
But she's super quiet.
Yeah, she doesn't, like, get mad and be like, why are you looking upstairs? She's just like, do you want your drink?
Doesn't even walk fast enough up the stairs to make a noise. She's just very quiet.
Yeah. And he's like, I actually got to be going. She goes, are you sure you haven't had any of your cocoa? And he's like, I'm sure it's great, but it's going to have to wait. And because he obviously is suspicious of her and doesn't want to trust anything she put in anything.
Yeah.
So he leaves, and then Paul knocks over the grill, the barbecue.
Yep.
And he comes back in and finds he's like, I'm down here! And he, like, opens up the basement door and he sees me. He's like, Mr. Sheldon? And then you say it. And
then unfortunately Annie shoots him in the back with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And he falls down the stairs.
Sucks, man. Because I was like, if he's gonna get out of this in any way, it's that guy.
And the fact that the sheriff is so nice, you just see how happy he is still.
He was nice, and for a small town sheriff, he was so competent and, like, smart about all this stuff, and, like...
He was one of those characters you really didn't want to die, though. You're like, oh, fucking idiot.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And he was, like, suspicious of Annie from the beginning, and, like...
It was very good, so it's very...
Sucks,
it's just
man.
So disappointing.
Yeah, and she's like, I had to do it. Someone was going to come looking for you eventually. And then she pulls out her little pistol and she's like, I filled it with 2 bullets. One for you and one for me. It's time. And he's like, but I haven't finished the book yet. Like, he thinks really quickly. He's like, but I haven't finished the book. And she's like, but more people will come looking for you. He goes, come on, I'm almost done. And then we'll die and be together forever. And misery will live on. And it's like, she's like, she goes upstairs and she's like, she just puts the wheelchair at the foot of the stairs and she's like, I'll fix you something to eat. And she walks away. And you have my favorite anecdote of this movie is like, she expected him to just climb up the stairs? There's a dead body on there now.
There's a dead body. He's got fucking broken ankles and his legs are still recovering.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, there's that. And we see him upstairs finally. Mm-hmm. And they're having dinner. Or no, he finishes the
book and... He's like, I need 3 things. And she goes, what 3 things? And he's like, you don't know? And she goes, of course I know. You need a cigarette because you used to smoke, but you only smoke 1 after you finish a novel. You need a single match to light it, and a glass of... she doesn't even call it Dom Perignon. She calls it Dom Perignon or something. And he's like, yeah, Dom Perignon. It's exactly right.
So he does piss her off.
Yeah. Well, and it's very much a thing of, like, at this point when she knows exactly what he needs after finishing a book, you and I didn't have any reaction. Because at this point, we're not shocked.
She's just a fucking creepy-ass stalker.
She is crazy. But she gets that stuff, and he's, like, still finishing it up. And she's like, did I do good when she brings it? And he goes, you did perfect. Except for one thing. And he's like, we need 2 glasses. And she goes, oh, Paul. And she walks away. And then he, like, because he hid, while he was down in the basement, he hid frickin' lighter fluid in his pants.
Yeah.
And he pulls that out, puts all of the stuff on there, and starts soaking it. And she comes in, and he's holding the last page in a match. And he's like, he's like, do you, oh yeah, he's like, you remember the mystery about who her father was? And you'd wondered if they'd ever be reunited? It's right here. Who would she end up with? Would it be Ian or Winthorne? It's all right here.
And does the most poetic thing ever.
He lights the match, lights the page, and she's like, you can't! And he goes, why not? I learn it from you. And drops it on the whole frickin' book. And I'm like, I started cheering immediately.
Which is the best fuck you ever.
You smiled. You were like, yes, yes.
Well, it's like, how do you like it? All your work that was all dedicated to what you wanted to see, you get to see the rewrite, and you get to see what mystery. And now it's just, poop, gone.
Yep, goodbye. He even did the cruel thing of letting her read every chapter until the last chapter.
To put her in suspense. And she'll never know.
Yep. I love that. Why not? I learn it from you. And she's like running over frantically, trying to slap out the fire.
Which shows you just how insane she is.
She is. She's
desperate.
Like, not my misery. She's yelling. And he grabs the typewriter and just, bam, hits her in the head with it. Her arm catches on fire for a second. And then she shoots him.
In the shoulder.
Or no, that's not yet. She gets up as he's like wheelchairing. He's going forward toward her. God, what is happening? Toward her in the wheelchair. Shut up. And she starts choking and then slams his head against the window. And this is the one time we hear Annie swear.
Yeah. What'd she say?
She called him a
ungrateful fucking something.
No, she didn't say the F word. What is the word? Oh, yeah. How do I phrase this? It had something to do with chickens and sucking on them.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Yeah, trying to stay PG here.
Yeah, which is that one's still worse than the F-bomb.
Yeah, and it's like, of all the swears you're okay with saying, because this whole movie she's like cockamamie and poop and like just saying all this very
the
PG
worst
stuff.
two. There's only 2 really bad words, and those are the C words.
Yeah.
The CS and the C word.
Yeah. So she's like choking him, and then he like gouges her eyes.
Which you see a little bit of fake blood, which is definitely like one of those things where you're like, no!
Yeah. And she pulls out the gun and shoots him in the shoulder, and then he pushes the wheelchair towards her and like tackles her, and then the other bullet comes out of the gun when it hits the ground. So you know there's no more bullets
Thank
in
God.
that gun. Yeah. And they're kind of just fighting on the ground, and he like the other most satisfying thing, he grabs the charred paper and he's like, you want it? Eat it! And he like
shoves it right into her mouth.
Eat it till you choke, you sick, twisted. Yeah, oh gosh, that's so good.
It was very poetic and very well done. You feel the acting.
You were huge smiling. You were like,
it's about fucking time.
Yeah. But so then, she like puts him back down on the ground and stands up. And like she's running at him, but
and
he like
trips her with his
limp legs,
which he picks up with his hands and just literally throws it right in front of her.
And she like trips and her head hits the typewriter, and it's very clearly a dummy, but she's like boom, and then the music stops and you're like, oh thank God she's dead. Oh thank you.
And he
starts crawling I don't know where he's going to. There's no phone.
Well, he starts getting up in his wheelchair first, doesn't he?
No, he starts crawling.
Oh, all right.
He's crawling, and then, because this movie has to follow all horror rules,
she's still alive and says, "Surprise, bitch!"
The killer comes back for one last scare, and she jumps on him, and she's like trying to choke him out, and he grabs an iron, which has a pig for a handle, and smacks her with it, like,
which is
twice.
The irony.
Yeah, because she named her pig Misery. Misery was what he was doing there as writing.
And he said, didn't he say something too, that misery would be the death of us?
Yeah, he did. And it was the death of her. So then she, like, dies on him. Like, she falls over on him.
He broke her nose, because he basically takes the bottom end and he punches her in the nose.
And then, bam, and she's like, pum.
Which, for those of you who don't know, the logic behind that is you have a bone in your nose which will stab your brain if it is fractured.
Which her brain was already fractured for sure from that typewriter fall.
Yeah.
If she was doing anything, it was from pure adrenaline.
Which I thought she broke her neck at first on it.
No, I was just like, I thought she hit her head really hard on it. And so then after that, it cuts to 18 months later in New York City. And we see him in a suit walking with a cane.
Who's very visibly shaking. His legs are not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's having a dinner with his agent.
Excuse me.
Bless you. He's having a dinner with his agent, and she's like, she gives him the first copy of his new book, which is about the slum kid stuff. And she's like, the review from the Times is going to be a love letter. Such and such is saying this and this. And she's like, and don't laugh, but you finally have a chance at some prizes. And he's like, great. And she's like, I thought you'd be happy. He goes, I hope they love it, and he's like, I hope the critics love it, and I hope the public loves it, but I did it for me. And you and I both get that.
Yeah.
Creating something where you're like, I don't care what anyone thinks, I'm doing this for myself.
I mean, that's what I do with some of my shorts now. I'm just writing them because I'm like, it's art.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's like, it might sound crazy, but I think in a way Annie helped me. And she's like, how would you feel about writing a non-fiction book about what happened in that house? And he looks at her and goes, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you were trying to make me relive the biggest horror of my life so we can make a few bucks.
Which automatically is kind of ironic, because I'm listening to Mr. Creepypasta, just to throw a quick note in there. I'm listening to the sequel to the Jeff the Killer reboot, and listening to how his brother Lou Wood survived, and he's currently working in the industry, giving interviews and making millions of dollars off telling his sob story of what happened to his parents and everybody. So automatically, when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what popped in my mind. So I was like, that's kind of ironic.
Well, and she's like, I thought you were over it. And he goes, I am, but it's like, it's
a part of me now.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a year that I was tortured and
it's only been
a
year and a half from now. You expect me to get over it that fast?
Which, I'd be surprised if anybody. It's like a war.
Yeah.
You know, like, PTSD, like, suffers, like, war is
it's like
misery, too.
It's like Castaway. He was on the island for 5 years, and he was a completely different person.
Yeah, like, you don't just go, oh yeah, psychological torture and the threat of my life and never being found.
Like, yep, I'm fine. And he has a bit of PTSD too, because he sees the woman carrying the cake and she pulls out a knife to cut the cake and it looks like Annie. He's like, and he doesn't react at all, to his credit. So he's like, I know she's gone, but I still see her every now and then. And it's very much a thing of, like, you know, he's had so many episodes that he just doesn't even react to it anymore. Like, he knows, like, I know it's not there. I know it's not real.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen the first time he had that episode where he thought he saw her.
That would have...
I thought you were dead! I killed you! Just freaking out. Anytime he saw a short-haired brunette woman.
I mean, it'd be within reason.
Yeah. When she comes over and she goes, are you Paul Sheldon? And he's like, yeah, I am. She's like, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm your biggest fan. I'm your number one fan. Which is something Annie said to him. And he's like, that's very kind of you. And then we get credits. But it's like...
That makes me disturbed. Is there another...
Yeah. even a year and a half later, if someone said that same phrase to me, I would still freak out. I'd be reluctant to talk to fans in general.
Yeah, you'd have every reason to not want to.
Because she had in her house, she had a mural of all of his books, hardcover and paperback, and in the middle of it, she had a headshot of him that was signed by him. So you kind of get the implication that they might have
met him once.
Yeah, they might have met, and he just doesn't remember.
Which it's fine because it's understandable. You have so
Yeah.
many people asking you for autographs. Eventually, you're just kind of like,
Oh, the faces blend.
yeah.
Yeah. But I would have that mindset of, like, any one of them could kidnap me next.
Yeah. But, alas, that's the end of our movie, and it is so great. Something that I says, I would have loved to see Kathy Bates or see and Jack Nicholson cross over in a movie together, or both have, like, an Annie... Like, see some sort of Stephen King, like, in Castle Rock or something, which I think she's in.
She's in the second season. She's young in the second season. It's post her husband dying, and she's like in nursing. She's working at a hospital.
So is Castle Rock like the prelude to all these characters? Because Bill Skarsgård plays a different person, or does he play Pennywise?
He doesn't play Pennywise. It's a lot of because there's the idea because we even get that thing with the opening of this movie. You see the lighthouse, and it's Castle Rock Entertainment. That's his company that his adaptations are made of. Because Castle Rock, like
Ties
a lot of his books, all happen in that same area of Maine. You know, 'cause that's where he's from, and right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's why I made Derry.
exactly. So that's like they all kind of happen around the same place. Like in the show Castle Rock, you see like a little newspaper clipping of a dog going crazy, and that's obviously a nod to Cujo. You see the Salem's Lot graveyard, which Salem's Lot, great, his favorite book, he's noted. So, like, yeah, it's very much the idea that everything that's happening in all of his books are all happening in this same universe of reality.
Yeah, which is nice. I've yet to do Castle Rock, which we definitely got to do a discussion about that.
Oh, yeah. Good show.
And a mix of all that.
Good show. I don't want to watch it at night or alone. So, if we can get, like, a group to watch some together, that'd be cool. I'd be down.
Definitely. And we still have to binge Babylon 5.
Yes. But that'll be for our own time.
That will be for our own time, and we may throw in a brief discussion of like that and Farscape. We won't really do a review of it, but we'll do our own review as and how we thought about it.
Yeah, exactly.
For a sci-fi episode in the future.
But yeah, so if you want to rate it, what would you give Misery?
Misery, I'd definitely give a solid 9.7.
Same, 9.5.
Because nothing is perfect.
No, nothing is.
But I think there is there's a couple things where, I don't even know what to really say about it because no movie is always 100% perfect. There's always a little bit more you can do with it.
She won Best Actress for this, and I think she deserved that.
She definitely deserved it.
1,000%, because I believed she was insane. Like, that's how you know an actor is worthy of winning, like, an accolade, like an Oscar or something, is if you forget for a second that that's who that is. I didn't at once think it was Kathy Bates. She was Annie. That's all she was. James Caan, he did really well as well, but I would still every now and then would think, oh, right, Godfather.
I didn't for this movie, but, it's been a while since I've seen that. And...
It's been a while. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely was a great movie overall.
High recommend.
I'd definitely say watch 10 Cloverfield Lane. Don't need to watch any of the Cloverfield movies. And then, if you really want some, I just am going off of how I'd watch them first, if you haven't seen Misery yet. 10 Cloverfield Lane is what I'd start with, just because John Goodman.
Because they'd make a great couple.
And then, yes. And the reason I say that is because then you can really see where the inspiration, because I think Kathy Bates really takes it up a notch. And you could see where the idea of, like, this paranoia really came from, of being trapped in one singular area, which we'll definitely do a 10 Cloverfield Lane episode.
For sure. At some point.
Everything
we're saying will happen at some point.
Yes, and I'd love to do something on The Shining too, because I think these are two back-to-back movies that you definitely should watch. They're both great. They're all in one confined space.
And
the fear is real. They're both Stephen King, and the fear is real. And they both have two amazing actors portraying these insane characters. and they do an absolutely fabulous job.
Would you rather be trapped in a hotel with Jack Torrance or a house with Annie Wilkes?
It depends on my circumstances.
Okay.
Or am I broken-legged and am I small? Because if we're talking in a general sense, I'd still rather be with Jack Torrance.
Yeah.
Because there is a chance that the hotel will take him over.
Mm-hmm.
And that if it wanted to kill him or let him go, it could do whatever it wanted.
Hence why they went there in Dr. Sleep.
But we're not going to spoil that.
No. God, no. So good.
Which is different from the novel, of course.
Yeah.
Which I'm still currently reading. So,
yeah. But
without further ado, guys, this was Misery. Definitely go check it out. It is a amazing, amazing movie. I have not read the book, but obviously we put some video footage ahead, so sorry for that as well and the interruptions. Hopefully that won't affect how good our podcast was for you, but you'll definitely be able to see that book, which is the first edition, which is cool, which I got to add to my reading list.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely give this a chance. I personally say, like I said, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Misery, and The Shining. All some good stuff to watch. So,
for sure.
In the month that you're hearing this, there's actually a cool thing going on with AMC where we are, which is we'll decipher in the next episode if we got to see it or not. But in theaters, they're re-releasing Psycho, The Shining, and what was the other one? Do you remember?
I don't.
I think it was Psycho, The Shining, and I wanted to say Inception for some reason, but that's far from right.
No.
No, it's a couple of releases. Friday the 13th, Psycho,
and
The Shining, Jacko, and Amityville 4.
Yeah. Jacko.
Which is an 80s slasher. It's
okay.
I want to say that's like just a cheesy, I don't know if it was 80s, I forget. I think it was 1995. But yeah, that's definitely something cool. So you'll know if we got to see that or not.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching / listening.
Yeah, and sorry about that, but hopefully next time we can have somebody else who can help us a little bit, and we can give you the video quality of my fugly mug and our fabulous guy over here.
Oh yeah, thanks for not calling me fugly. Only insult yourself. Is that the rule?
Oh, it is.
All right. All our socials will be in the description because this will probably be on YouTube then. If the first bit was
YouTube,
visual,
Anchor. So if you're listening to this, thank you for listening to the podcast, and if you're watching this, thank you for watching today's video.
Yep, so. And all our socials will be in the description. With that being said, he's Noah Sweeto.
Yep, I am Noah Sweeto, and that is Nathaniel Shoemaker.
Yes, I am Nathaniel Shoemaker.
And this has been Film Nerds Hour. Stay safe out there, guys.
Yeah, love each other, and even if it's not easy.
Be excellent
to each other and party on, dudes.
Party on, dudes.
But not during COVID.
Yes. See you later, guys.
Bye.